Hey guys, in this video, I'll be going over the top 3 free-to-play characters you should invest in. I'll also be going over the relics and team comps needed to make these free-to-play characters the best they possibly can be. To start things off, I want to dub these 3 amazing characters the Holy Trinity of free-to-play. These 3 characters are all unlocked for free just by playing the story, but they're also extremely impactful to carrying you throughout Honkai Star Rail's various game modes. The first character I'll be going over is March 7th. As one of the first characters to join your roster, March 7th is a complete monster when it comes to defense. Her role as a shielder makes her essential to almost every team composition. In the early game, shielders are pretty much required if you want to clear the content without struggling too hard. If you manage your skill points well, you can use her shield constantly and keep your allies safe from harm's way. Her shields, at minimum, negate the damage of one attack and can even block 2 attacks from weaker enemies. In addition, March 7th's shield lasts a whopping 3 turns and provides an increased taunt effect to those targeted. This ensures that you'll always receive value from shielding your allies as March 7th. Due to her talent, any shielded allies that are attacked also receive a counterattack from her as well. Along with her shields, March 7th also provides an AoE ultimate, which has the capability to freeze her enemies. Her kit synergizes extremely well considering her free-to-play status, and you'd be a fool to not use her in your team. To play March 7th optimally, you should be shooting almost every turn you can. In Honkai Star Rail, turtling is the most effective strategy at the moment, and you should almost never use her normal attack. This is because whenever characters don't have shields, they are extremely vulnerable. Getting lazy on shielding can result in bosses catching you by surprise and one-shotting your squishy characters. If the enemies are not locked into any characters, you should always shield March 7th. This is because certain characters have built-in taunt values based on their path. March 7th is part of the Preservation path, which is the class most likely to be targeted by enemies. Here's a chart showing the taunt values of each respective path. After she is shielded, I recommend you to use the next turn to shield a character with the second highest taunt value based on their path. Despite the solidity of this advice, it is not always optimal to shield the highest taunt value character. For example, certain characters have AoE attacks which will hit multiple targets on your team. In addition, March 7th's shield only increases the chance of being hit, but doesn't guarantee it. In certain circumstances, where enemies have strong AoE, you want to shield characters that have the lowest HP and defense. Oftentimes, these characters are your DPS and support. Also, if the enemy locks onto a certain ally, you should shield them immediately under all circumstances. For March 7th's relics, I highly recommend the Knights of Purity Palace and the Bellbog of the Architect set. These sets are currently the most optimal because they raise her defense stat, which is what her shields scale off of. For the main stats of each relic, you should be shooting for defense percent as well. For her relic substats, I would prioritize defense, then speed, then either attack, crit, or crit damage. For her light cones, I'd recommend getting any of these. The second character of the Holy Trinity is arguably the best free-to-play character ever in Honkai Star Rail. Natasha is one of the only 2 healers in the game, which makes her an extremely valuable asset. Considering that the other healer, Bailu, is a 5-star and locked behind summons, I can guarantee you that Natasha is one of the most used 4-stars in all of Star Rail. Not using a healer on your team is like playing the game on extremely hard difficulty, especially for longer game modes such as Simulated Universe. I can confidently say that neglecting Natasha is a terrible decision, considering how important she is to survive in combat. The only reason someone should not build her is if you have Bailu, who is essentially a better Natasha. However, for the vast majority of free-to-play players, you'll be seeing a lot of Natasha until you can find a better healer. Therefore, she is the first free-to-play character you should build and max out. To play Natasha, it's certainly a lot easier than March 7th. The most important thing to keep in mind is to fully utilize her heals. This means to not heal when your characters are already somewhat healthy. Healing skills and ultimates should not be used without consideration. Make sure you keep track of how much your skill is healing, and only to heal when your health is below that threshold. Being efficient in healing is crucial considering how scarce skill points can be if you're constantly using them. If you are fighting a difficult boss, and you know they have a strong AoE attack coming up, you should always hold your ultimate until after they use their big attack. Natasha's relics are also pretty straightforward. You want to run Passerby of Wandering Cloud for the outgoing healing, and Sprightly Von Whack for the energy regeneration to increase her ultimate uptime. For the body piece, you want your main stat to be healing percent, and the rest of the pieces as HP percent because of her healing scalings. For substats, I recommend prioritizing HP and HP percent, then speed, then either attack, crit, or crit damage. Here are the light cones that Natasha runs well with. Lastly, one of the best free-to-play characters you must build is the Fire Trailblazer. As another preservation character, the Fire Trailblazer is focused on defense. He does this by using his skill, which taunts enemies for 1 turn. Unlike March 7th's taunt, the Fire Trailblazer is guaranteed to be hit, so you can be confident in your strategic calculations when using it. Overall, I would rate the Fire Trailblazer as a better preservation unit than March 7th due to how much more damage he can output. If we take a look at his ultimate at level 3, he deals damage based off of 60% of his attack and 90% of his defense, compared to March 7th, who deals 102% of damage based on her attack. Since these characters focus on building defense, Fire Trailblazer will always deal more damage with his ultimate. His shields are weaker than March 7th's, but his guaranteed taunt and damage reduction for the team from his traces make up for it. Plus, the Fire Trailblazer's Eidolons are way easier to farm than everyone else, making him the ultimate free-to-play character to build. Just like March 7th, he'll be running Knight of Purity Palace for his relics. For the planetary ornaments, I'd recommend Fleet of the Ageless instead of Belobog of the Architect, since his shields are already relatively weak and the team would benefit more from the attack damage boost. For light cones, any of these should be fine for the Fire Trailblazer. To end off this video, I'd like to go over some team compositions in which you can play the characters showcased in this video. Before going into compositions, I'd like to outline the general role structure that I follow for building most teams. For every team, it is highly recommended to always include a healer and a shielder. Then for the 2 remaining spots, you can run either a support or a debuffer for 1 slot and a DPS for the final slot. Now, following this team design philosophy, one very solid free-to-play team is March 7th, Natasha, Dan Heng, and Asta. This team perfectly fulfills all the designated roles while also maintaining a wide coverage of elements. Dan Heng is the best DPS you can get completely for free and will last you for a while until you find a replacement. In addition, Asta is also a solid support that can fit into nearly every team comp, which makes her valuable to build as well. March 7th and Natasha will be the core of many of your teams as free-to-play, and will probably never be changed until you either roll a Japard or Bailu. Once you start earning some 4-star characters from the banners, you can make changes to your team based on the element needed for the enemy. For example, Dan Heng can easily be switched out with Serval, Qingxue, Shushang, or Hook. Asta can be substituted for Tingyun or Pella, depending on the scenario as well. March 7th is interchangeable with the Fire Trailblazer if you need more fire element. If you get a 5-star at any point, they should quickly replace some of your free-to-play members. Depending on the 5-star you get, here's the general role they should replace on this free-to-play composition. I hope you guys enjoyed the guide I made for the best free-to-play characters to build, and if you want to see more content, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. See you guys on the next video. Peace.